All right, good afternoon to everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. My name is Andy Klein. I'm the dean here at the IU McKinney School of Law, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to tonight's Alan and Linda Cohen Family Foundation Sports and Entertainment Lecture, entitled tonight, How a Dentist Drilled the NFL and Changed the Way the Game is Played. A bit of an introduction to the program. There are a few places, maybe no places, better than this city, this campus, and this law school to engage in conversations about the intersection of law, business, and sports. As most of you in the room know, Indianapolis is one of the nation's leading hubs when it comes to athletics. We are sitting literally across the street from NCAA headquarters. We're home to leading sports organizations like USA Track and Field, USA Football, National Federation of High School Athletic Associations, the Indiana Sports Corporation. We are famously home to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We are home to two major league professional sports teams, the Colts and the Pacers. We host professional soccer, hockey, and baseball. The list could go on. To provide you a little bit of perspective, a study completed a little more than 5 years ago by the Indiana University Public Policy Institute quantified the annual economic impact of sports on central Indiana at $3.4 billion. That's billion with a B. So sports is an important part of our community. Now, as a campus, IUPUI is increasingly at the center of our community's strategy to ensure that Indianapolis remains a home to sports innovation. At the McKinney School of Law, we're really proud to count our alumni as some of the leaders in that enterprise, and I would be remiss during this introduction if I didn't acknowledge that the event tonight is made possible through the Alan and Linda Cohen Family Foundation Sports and Entertainment Law Fund. That fund was created on behalf of our law school alum, Alan Cohen, who founded the Finish Line, the sports apparel company. His wife, Linda, and his daughter, Lauren Cohen Edmondson, also an alum of this school. To their disappointment, the Cohens could not be with us tonight. I think this is the first of these events that they have missed, but I met with Lauren 2 weeks ago. She's really excited that you're here, Jerry, and I just want to publicly express my appreciation to them for their generosity that allows us to maintain this type of programming. I also want to thank our Assistant Dean for Diversity and Inclusion, Patricia Kinney. Patricia, wave. Patricia is an active member of our local Bar Association's Sports and Entertainment Law section, and she was the driving force behind organizing tonight's event. Thank you for all of your effort, Patricia, as well. Now, normally at this point, I would pivot and introduce our speaker, but I am going to pass that privilege to a special guest who is a longtime friend of tonight's speaker, and that's Andy Gladstein, who is over to my right. Andy is a highly successful businessman, a great alum and supporter of Indiana University, and a philanthropist. Among many activities, he is founder and president of Dogs for the Brave, an organization that provides service and companion dogs at no cost to veterans who've suffered injury or disability while serving our country. He served on the Juvenile Diabetes Board, the Indiana University Cancer Center Board, and the American Cancer Center Board. He is a tremendous supporter of Indiana University athletics. Due to his generosity, the indoor track and field house in Bloomington is now the Harry Gladstein Track and Field House, named after Andy's father. So with no further ado, Andy, we're pleased to have you here tonight, and I'm going to turn the podium over to you to introduce this evening's speaker.
Jerry did not know I was going to introduce him. We won't talk about your golf game. Ladies and gentlemen, you're tonight in the presence of a man who has changed and is changing many lives. He was a dentist, turned sports agent, turned professional football team owner, and partners with Donald Trump. He was considered by many to be the most powerful man in sports in his day. Why? Because as a sports agent, he protected his clients, some of whom were Heisman Trophy winners, and as a matter of fact, he was so good and honest that the top football players in the game chose him as their agent when he had never been a sports agent before. He negotiated the first multi-million-dollar contract in NFL history, wrote the Lloyd's of London insurance policy to protect his athletes had they been hurt, and was feared by every NFL owner of the day. He changed the rules of the NFL by how he helped the football team he owned in the USFL. Yes, the guy all the owners in the NFL hated, literally, because he would not play the good old boy game with the athletes coming out of college. He implemented rule changes in the NFL, and he was never an NFL owner. He did so by the team he owned in Houston in the USFL, and the NFL adopted a lot of the rules changes that Jerry came up with. One of the comments from one of his players, if everyone in the NFL hates you, besides your players, you must be doing something right. That was Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Bears. He always put his players first. Jim Kelly from the Buffalo Bills. The San Diego Chargers owner, Gene Klein, called Jerry a lying scumbag, as he would not kowtow to the owners to signing players cheaply and under the table. Brent Musburger called Jerry the most powerful man in football. But to understand who he is, you must watch his actions not in front of the TV, in front of TV cameras, but in the quiet of his home and the local high schools in Rancho Mirage, California. He started a mentorship program completely funded by himself with his wife for local students to help them learn the real way to happiness. They have paid for college trips for young men and women, helped young men and women pay for their expenses, had them come live at his home. The JASI Institute in Rancho Mirage, California at the high school, Rancho Mirage High School, Jerry Argovitz Sports Institute, now has a class they allow him to teach or ask him to teach every week, teaching young students the fundamentals of life as it relates to sports, studies, and how you should live your life. You're in the presence of a man who put his money to good work. As one of his former players told me, if it wasn't for the man standing over there, I'd be on the streets probably selling drugs. Instead, he made me the man I am today, had me put money away for the future, and I was self-sufficient when I left. And I just finished paying for my daughter's medical school. This is a former player talking. He's a giant of a man, it's just most people don't know it. Jerry is a wonderful friend. I am closer to him than I am my own brother, and I'm proud to introduce him, Jerry Argovitz.
Andy, it's exactly as I wrote it. Good job. It always amuses me when people come up to me and say, how does a dentist become a sports agent? Think about this. I'm operating with a drill that's going 600,000 RPMs, 6 inches from your brain, and a big black hole with a big tongue, with a mirror, and shooting water on it. So if I can do that, why couldn't I do whatever else I wanted to? How did I become a sports agent? Well, we're going to talk about that. E plus R equal O. E is the event, plus R is response, equal O is the outcome. To keep getting the same outcome, you need to change your response. Pretty simple. You just need to use it. I teach that to my JASI class. I taught this to the National Football League players that I represented 35 years ago. A good speech is one, it's kind of like a woman's skirt. It's long to cover it's long enough to cover the surface, the subject, but it's short enough to keep your interest. I'm going to try to do that for y'all today. Show me your friends and show me your future. The 5-second rule. If you're ever getting ready to do something, and you have to think about it for 5 seconds, don't do it. That's the message I've given to players for a long, long time. Most important thing about a person, a man or a woman, is having character and integrity. It takes three things to be a person of character. Rule number one, you do the right thing. Rule number two, you always do the right thing. And rule number three, repeat rules 1 and 2. If you do that, I promise you, you'll never get in trouble. BTB, be the best that you can be. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. These are things we talk about every Wednesday morning in my JASI class, and things I've taught these players years ago. When I was writing my book, Super Agent, years ago, a few years back in 2013, the book was published. But before that, I reached back to talk to many, many of my clients. Some of these young men that were young then, when I was representing them, I haven't spoken to over 30 years. When they heard my voice, some of them, I could hear the voice cracking. Doc, is that really you? How could it be anybody else who sounds like me? They started laughing. They told me things I never remembered, I never realized. I'd ask them, as I'm writing a book, I want you to tell me you like me, you didn't like me. Just tell me what it meant to you, if anything. They repeated pretty much what I just told you. They told me how much I meant to them. I made me feel good. I never realized these things they told me, the impact I made on their lives, and they, in turn, trained their children to do the same thing. I wasn't just an agent. I was a business manager also. So I made sure that they did the right thing, that nobody took advantage of them. They didn't, throw the money away, make stupid mistakes. Except one guy. Anybody heard of Jim McMahon? Few of you, I'm sure, have. Okay. But Jim kind of marches to his own drummer. He plays golf barefooted. He chews tobacco. He does a lot of things, but he's been doing that for a long, long time. Years ago, when I was his agent, he was going to go into a gold mining venture with one of his BYU father, who was his teammate, BYU, and they had him going to put $80,000 into a gold deal. He showed it to me. I said, Jim, I don't think that's a good deal. He said, why? I said, I gave him all the reasons why it's not a good deal. He said, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Well, about 2 years later, he said, Doc, she'll listen to you. I said, yeah, I know. It's all gone. So maybe you'll listen next time. We learn lessons not for what we do sometimes, but what you don't do or you shouldn't have done. All the years I was this player representative, I never lost a client to another agent. Think about that. Players, athletes, change agents like you change underwear. You're here today and gone tomorrow. Poof, you're gone. So the measure of a good agent is, do you maintain your players? You take care of them. You handle their affairs. Nobody in sports ever heard my name before. 1980. I did something that had never been done before and will never, ever be done again. I wound up representing 7 of the top players in the NFL draft. Billy Sims, the number 1 player, taken by the Detroit Lions. Curtis Dickey was drafted by the Baltimore Colts, number 4. Fantastic running back from the Texas A&M. 10th player taken in the first round, Jacob Green, Seattle Seahawks. 28th player in the first round, George Gumby, went to the Green Bay Packers. First player in the second round was Joe Cribbs, taken by the Buffalo Bills. So I wound up with 7, Cleveland Crosby and Harry Parrington. So these were my first 7 players. They all signed with me knowing that I never did an NFL contract before, knowing I had no experience as a sports agent. Again, like I said, I just wasn't their agent. I was a business manager. We developed a family. This wasn't a casual relationship. We didn't go out and drink beer or pal around like that. This was a respectful relationship. I didn't just get to know these guys, as a fan sitting there. I knew them as a person. I was talking. This is probably 6 months ago. I had a producer. I've had several different people talk to me after they read my book in Hollywood. Hollywood, to me, confuses motion for progress. They're doing all this stuff, but nothing ever happens. So I'm very leery of them. Have people try to buy my book rights. This one producer, keep his name private, because we're still talking. He came to me and he said, Doc, all the people call me Doc, all the players, different people. He said, I read your book, and he said, I just don't understand. He said, how could anybody in their right mind take on the NFL, the NCAA, NFLPA, National Football League Players Association, and other agents? He said, must be something behind the story that I don't understand. I said, well, let me explain it to you this way. You remember the movie A Time to Kill, John Grisham? Anybody remember that movie? Well, let me tell you how it affected me. Samuel Jackson played the part, black gentleman. His daughter, 14 years old, got kidnapped and raped by 2 white men. Samuel took justice in his own hands, and he went out and got rid of these guys. He killed them. The next scene shows Samuel Jackson in a jail cell. His young attorney who's representing him is Matthew McConaughey. Matthew's in the cell with Samuel. He says, Samuel, listen to me. If you'll take my advice, I can get you off free in 10 years. Take a plea bargain. 10 years, you'll be a free man. I'm your friend. I'm trying to help you. Samuel Jackson looks at him and says, man, you ain't my friend. You don't know nothing about my family. You never been to my house. You never broke bread with my family. You see, the difference is I have been. I've been in all these young men's houses. I've met their grandmothers. I've met their aunts. I've met their mothers. No father figures. The compassion that I have for these people, these young men, the trust that they put in me meant a great deal. All they wanted was to make enough money to buy their grandmother, their mother, their aunt a house, whoever raised them. I've been in people's house, walked into a room with a linoleum floor, had 5 little pallets on the floor. Grandma Sadie says, that's for my 2 daughters, these are my grandchildren. They're divorced, and I try to help take care of the kids. One bed over here, the 6'4", 250-pound kid, little narrow bed, that's where he slept, All-American athlete. I saw players, and I'm going back now to 1980. I saw players with their tennis shoes cut out on his toes. You know how they cut things out? So why are you wearing these shoes? Well, these my brothers, and I've outgrown them. So didn't have the money to buy new ones, so we just cut them out. Works fine. I've seen players that had 2 pair of overalls and 3 shirts. That was their wardrobe. All-American football players. I've had players come from the South. They go to the East Coast. Hugh Green was telling me a story. Anybody remember Hugh Green? The greatest linebackers, defensive players that ever played the game. He's like my son. Not 2 weeks to go by, he doesn't call me, Doc, how you doing? Had brain surgery November 14th, 2 years ago. He called me every day. He called me He said, I'm coming there. I'm going to be there with you and take care of you, make sure you're okay. And I said, thank you. I love you. But I'll be okay. Don't worry, I'll be okay. The relationship that I created, and you know what? It's still the same today. And I had 2 missions that I wanted to complete before I took the plane out here. Getting ready to turn 82 years old. One mission is to try to clear my name. You're looking at a convicted, egregious conflict of interest person, convicted. Me. I told my wife before we were married, I said, Lonnie, we were going together, we had several dates, and we really liked each other. So I told her, I said, I got to admit something to you. I said, I've been convicted of having a conflict of interest with my players, and I just want to tell you. Gee, I know all those things. I read about it. What'd you think? I'll deal with it. You don't seem to be that kind of person to me. I can't tell you how much pain and agony it caused me to see my mother and my wife at that time sitting in a courtroom when they were just beating the hell out of me, crying. My father couldn't even come in Detroit for the lawsuit, which we'll talk about shortly. The first time I met DJT, used to call him DJ, Donald Trump, 37 years old. First time I met him, you know how the United Nations work? The big table, and they have the flags, individual flags of all the countries that you represent. Well, picture this. We got 18 teams in the United States Football League, and you have our flag. You got the Houston Gamblers, the New Jersey Generals. So who am I sitting next to? Donald Trump. First time I met him. I've got my fountain pen in my right hand. We're sitting down, and on my yellow pad, I've written down Donald Trump. Trumph. I never heard of him before. I know how to spell his name. He reaches over, across me, takes my fountain pen out of my hand, reaches over, and scratches his H off. I'm looking at him like I'm astonished. I'm looking at him. He said, "There's no H in Trump. Never forget that." I looked at him. I said, "Noted." I said, "Can I get my pen back, please?" My first visit with Donald. But it's funny. Before that, I had a guy call me 2 or 3 times, asking me about is the NFL really a monopoly? Can this new league really make it? He said, I followed your career. His name was John Barron. He said, I've got a client who's looking to get into the USFL. He's thinking about buying a franchise. He said, I followed your career. You really know what you're talking about, and I need your advice, professional advice. Well, the voice kind of sounded familiar, but I never thought about it. Never put 2 and 2 together. That was Donald Trump calling me. His name John Barron. Get the information. Kind of amazing. When I was 13 years old, I'll never forget this. I came from a small town in Borger, Texas. I was a little kid growing up. Always getting bullied. Used to have 2 fights every day of my life. One going to school and one coming home. I used to think Jew bastard was one word until I was 12 years old. I'm not joking. I was bullied. I was one of these kids that's always the last one to be chosen in any of the sports. Always the last one to have somebody ask me to a prom or something. So I was having my bar mitzvah in Dallas. I had to go there and memorize everything. And I'll never forget, my dad, down right before we go out, down on his knee, he was tying, this is my tie. My tie on me, talking to me. Son, he said, I am really proud of you because this is a very important day in your life. I said, Dad, why's that? He said, you're going to be bar mitzvahed. In the Jewish religion, that's the day you become a man. You become responsible and accountable for everything you do and everything that you didn't do that you should have done. He said, when you come into this world, you're born, you come in naked. You have no worldly possessions. All you have is your name on a birth certificate, Jerry Allen Argovitz. He said, and when you die, all you'll have is your name on the tombstone, Jerry Allen Argovitz, the day you're born, and the day that you die. Is how you will be remembered is what you've done between the day you're born and the day you die. That is your legacy. It's the most important thing that you have. You give somebody your word, you do it. You lie, you'll cheat. If you cheat, you'll steal. The honesty is what it's all about, your name. Keep our name clean, keep it pure. These are things I learned as a little kid, 13 years old. That's a hell of a load to put on a kid 13 years old. Two things that really straightened my life out at that time. I used to get in fights all the time. Not because I wanted to, because I had no choice. I was fearless. I didn't win many of them, but I fought. I'd come home, you can still see the scars on my knuckles. I'd come home, bloody eye, bloody, nose, black eye, clothes torn off, shirts ripped. My dad told me one day, he said, son, I really appreciate and respect you for taking up your heritage. He said, but you have options. I said, Dad, what you mean options? He said, well, as an example, he says, if you're going to get into trouble, sometimes you have to walk away. So you may have to run. He said, another option is talk somebody out of it, get them off their game. Tell them you're sorry they feel that way and get out of it. He said, and if you keep getting in fights, I think you better learn how to fight. Well, the first option was, I didn't think I was fast enough to outrun these kids who were a lot bigger than I was in Borger, Texas. They were pretty big kids there. I was pretty small. The second thing was, I wasn't thinking about talking to somebody, because if I'm going to get in a fight, I'm going to get the first punch in. And the third thing is, I took to boxing like a duck takes to water. In Texas, we got a saying, if you're telling the truth, you're not bragging. So I decided to take up boxing. And I started out at 80 pounds. I kept boxing. And then Golden Gloves was a big deal in those days in the Texas Panhandle. Big deal. I wound up winning the lightweight division championship of the region. As I got bigger, the next year I won the welterweight division. The next year I won the middleweight division. The last year I fought light heavyweight, and I fought for the state of Texas light heavyweight championship. I came up runner-up. So I don't care what your kids do or who you are when you're small. You got a grandchild, you got a child, whatever you got, get them interested in something they do better than somebody else does. I just got tired of being bullied, and I just said it's not going to happen anymore. That same spirit, never give up, persistence, all the positive things, motivation, all the things I've learned and worked for, it made me the man I am, was because of the hardships I had growing up. And that's what can happen to all of us. A lot of people quit. A lot of people don't want to compete anymore. Difficult times, find out who you really are. If you don't grind, you don't shine. So it's really important to find something that you do that you love, you have a passion for, and you're willing to commit to it. Very important. Let me ask you a question. What is your legacy? You ever thought about it? Maybe you haven't. When you get around my age, you may start thinking about it a little more. What are people going to think of you? Well, a lot of my legacy is going to depend on how you feel about me when the day's over. Because I've had a heavy load for many, many, many years. And what you think is very important to me. How many attorneys are here? How many lawyers are here? Raise your hands. I'm in the right place, I'll tell you that. My father used to say, my father Harry, he said, my son loves lawyers. He said, he'll go to a bunch of lawyers, he finally will find somebody that agrees with him, and that's the one he hires. And that's probably true to an extent. I always had a pretty good feeling for what's right and wrong. And you know what? I'm not afraid to fight. And I know where the courthouse is. I'm not somebody that looks for lawsuits. But if it's what it takes, I'm not, you cheating me or you doing something dishonest, I'm going to step up. It's the other things I see in life that I'm not involved with. I see what's going on in the world. And think to myself, this is so wrong. Remember, the kids that I've been with, their mothers, their aunts, Doc, please watch after you. Please make sure he gets an education. I'm so worried about him. Lady says, Doc, please take care of Billy. I've raised him since he's 14 years old. And I'm afraid somebody will get a hold of him and nothing good's going to happen for him. Please take care of him. Responsibility from the family relationship I had with the players and their grandmothers, or their aunts, or their mothers, single family households. Clearly became a family member to my family. I'm proud of that. Proud of it. So, who in here has ever heard my name before I came here today? Who has ever heard my name? Raise your hand, let me see. When you heard my name, what did you hear about me? Okay. It's just about the USFL, okay? Good. Sure. Okay, what else? Okay. Who else? Yes, ma'am. Ah, thank you. Anybody else ever hear about the Sims case before you met me? Nobody else? Yeah, I figured so. Before you even met me, I was guilty of an egregious conflict of interest. Think about that a minute. I've never really thought too much about people being innocent and being convicted of something because I say, well, I don't know about that. You know, everybody says they're innocent when they do something. But I found out there's a lot of people that are innocent, went to jail or had something bad happen to them, and they were innocent. So here I am, 35 years later. As long as there's a law school, as long as there's law students want to be a sports agent, they're going to hear Sims versus Argovitz. Egregious conflict of interest. I can't begin to tell you how much money that's cost me, how much embarrassment, how much humiliation, what it's done to my family's name. Our grandkids, our great-grandkids, our great-great-grandkids, the Doc's no longer around. They're going to see Argovitz. My great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, was a crook. What he did to this poor player. Took advantage of him forever. How do you unring the bell? You're the lawyers. So before you even met me, what you see around here is still up there. Can anybody see it? Branded for life. Egregious conflict of interest. Right across here. That's the hell way to be remembered and be known by. So as you remember, when I was 13 years old, I tried to live by what my daddy told me. I worked hard to try to do that, to be a good person. Laws are meant to be followed. Rules are meant to be followed. If you don't like them, change them. How many people, when they stand up for something they see that they know is wrong, and do something about it? That's up to you. I can't do anything for you. You have to do it on your own. I'm one of these people that do. Not just in everything, but in things that I know that's wrong, and I have the passion. Remember, I can't give you what I have in my heart. I can't give you the things I saw in a relationship I had with these families, these poor kids, having nothing. They're God-gifted athletes from poverty. And here I was, seeing it, loving them, having that relationship. Here we are today. Nothing has changed. When we were having the lawsuit in Detroit, Michigan, egregious conflict of interest. Also, you remember, especially for the lawyers, remember this. It was the NFL versus the USFL. Not just Sims versus Argovitz, it's also the NFL behind all this. So it's important to understand sometimes in life, when you have a situation, you have to be able to take a lemon and make lemonade out of it. That's what happened here. So as I sat in court with Billy coming in, I just see him. He's here in the courtroom. I'm here in the courtroom. He won't look at me. I'm looking at him. Our eyes never met. He never would look up to see me. And I ask myself as I sit in that courtroom, why am I here? What is going on? And I remember this like yesterday. My mind just starts running. I came out of a body experience. It goes back to all the things that got us to this point. First time I met Billy Sims was in Hawaii. Billy's playing in the Hula Bowl in Hawaii. I had a partner named Gene Burrow. Gene had known Billy, and he said he's got a deal with Billy to meet with us when if we come to Hawaii. Okay, you sure of that, Gene? He absolutely. Billy said he'd meet with us. We take our wives, we get in the first class, we go to Hawaii. We're there for 5 days. So all the teams are practicing. And Gene goes over to, I said, well, can you get Billy to come over? Goes over. See Gene later. I said, what did Billy say? Well, he couldn't talk because they were having meetings. So he said he'll talk to me tomorrow. Second day goes by, nothing. The third day goes by, nothing. And we spent a lot of money to get over there to meet with Billy Sims. No show. The day before the game, Gene climbed the wall. I don't care what it takes. If you have to kidnap him, I need him here for 20 minutes. I want one shot at Billy Sims. Get him here. Well, next day, Gene walks in. We had a big suite there in Hawaii. You have to just make an impression on somebody. Don't make a good first impression when you get a chance to make a second impression. So Billy comes in. Remember Billy Sims' picture with the afro? Like this? Big afro. Comes in. We meet, we talk. I had a plan. Casual things. I knew we had a short time. He looks at his watch. Well, didn't say anything. He just looked at his watch. He's sitting there. So I said, okay, to myself. So if we talked, I passed on a few presentes. I go over and get out of my briefcase. I have a financial statement, personal financial statement. Is that Donald calling? I can't talk now, Donald. So I said to Billy, I said, this is my personal financial statement. And on this column here, it shows my assets, how much cash you have. This is the assets, my real estate holdings, And this column over here is how much you owe, your debts. And he looks at it and he said, well, I like this column a lot better than the other one. He says, a lot more money than you got debts. He said, that's the way I want my mind to look. I said, well, you're working with me. I said, that's what we're going to do, Billy. I said, I want you to not make any commitments. But before you make it, and I already knew he signed taking money. Before you do anything else, I want you to come to Houston and come to my office, bring your wife, and come to my office and meet me. I'd like to meet with you. We get to know each other. He says, when I leave here, I'm going to the Senior Bowl in Alabama. I said, Billy, why are you going to the Senior Bowl? You're a Heisman Trophy winner. You're an All-American. You're going to be the first player drafted. I believe you'll be the first player drafted. Why are you going to the Super Bowl? You don't need to prove anything to anybody else. He said, for 20,000 reasons. I looked at him, 20,000 reasons? They're going to pay you $20,000 to play in the Senior Bowl? He said, yep. I said, Billy, that's chump change. What happens if you go there and you get your knee blown out? $20,000. It's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. You don't need to do that. So I said, you think about it. I'm just trying to give you some free advice here. Well, make a long story even shorter, Billy comes to Houston. We visit and we talk, and I'm thinking about all these things that I'm sitting in the courtroom, just going through my mind. I remember when Billy was in my office with his wife, Brenda, his wife at the time, Brenda, very nice lady, school teacher. Billy had his afro. Yeah. How do you tell a player you just met, All-American, to go get a haircut? No, Chuck, not me. We haven't signed yet, so I'm not going to get him upset with me. So I say to Billy, I said, Billy, you ever see O.J. running through the airport? Was it Avis or Hertz he represented? Which one was it? Hertz? Running through the airport full speed. I said, Billy, he had that nice hair, combed back, sharp looking in that sport coat, and that suit he was wearing, sport coat, wherever it was, jumping over the baggage, running through the airport. I said, that's corporate America. Didn't say anything. I said, so I never said anything about his hair. I just said, this is what O.J. Simpson looks like. So as I got through talking with Billy and Brenda, it's always important, I found out, to have, if the player's married, they got a wife, or particularly like girlfriends, because they change girlfriends pretty quickly. I wanted, if I had a wife, I insisted on them bringing a wife to get to know me, and I get to know them. And he comes in, he's there with his wife, and he says, well, I got a few appointments I got to make, and he said, maybe I can see you later. You gonna be around? I said, yeah. I said, we'll be here at 5 o'clock. So he leaves, shake hands, he leaves. And I guess a couple hours later, somebody walks in. I kind of look up. I didn't even recognize him. Look up and get back to doing what I'm doing. He walks in my office. I look at him. He says, is this what you mean by corporate America? He had cut his hair, put on a suit and tie, the biggest smile you'd ever see. Looked handsome, like a movie star. That's it. Exactly what I mean. I said, my goal is, Billy, is make you as much money off the field as you're making on the field. All you got to do is do your job, and I'll do my job. I said, my goal is, Billy, we talked about business. My goal is to make you a businessman. I've shown you the apartments, pictures of apartments we have, showed you shopping centers. I want to make you a businessman, not just a football player. Football's going to last this much of your life. The average time of a running back in those days was 4.2 years. The lifespan is a lot longer. So if you don't get with the right person, I'm not just an agent, I'm going to be your business manager. I'm going to protect you. When all your aunts and uncles and cousins come to you for money, all you got to do, I'd love to help you, call Doc. Call Doc. Let me handle that. Because you'll wind up giving half your money away to your relatives. That's the way it works. So all these things are going through my mind. I remember, so vividly, They called me one night. He's playing now. He signs this contract with the Detroit Lions. It was a war between me, right, me who's representing Billy Sims, and fighting with Detroit Lions to get paid fairly. A little war. Every day there was something in the press on a national basis. I one time said that Russ Thomas couldn't spell cat if you spotted him with a CNT. Bill Ford was a terrible owner, can't win games, won't pay players money. The only outlet I had was the media. In those days, agents were just buddies. They'd walk in, sit down on a napkin or a piece of paper. Okay, they'd negotiate a contract in 2 hours. Okay, we're going to pay him $150,000 signing bonus. We'll pay him 50, 60, 70, and 90. That's what they did. No values, that's what they did. See, because the agents in those days had all given money out to all these players. And they need to get their money back. So the quicker they sign them, the quicker they start getting money back again. I didn't need that because I always had a lot of money. Besides being a dentist, I was very successful in my real estate, entrepreneurship. So all the things were going through my mind about Billy. And then when the judge says, come back in, so we rule in favor of the plaintiff. It's egregious conflict of interest. I didn't even know what that meant. Steve Sussman, big-time lawyer in Houston, Texas, was the attorney who represented the gamblers and myself. And before this verdict came in, he whispered to me, he said, don't worry about it, Doc, we got this. They didn't do a thing. We were right on. You know, this is just a done deal. Don't worry about it. When he said, I said, Steve, what does egregious mean? He looks at me, he says, about as bad as it gets. Bad as it gets, egregious. So that's what I've lived with. Betrayal is a bitch. Has anybody here ever been betrayed before? Maybe not by a football player, but in your life. Have you ever had some betrayal? Painful, wasn't it? It took me a long time to get after it, get over that. Humiliation, the pain, like your son. That's how I looked at Billy. 18 years went by, never one time after that lawsuit, after that case was over, never one time did I read anything about Billy Sims. I talk about him, missing in action. 18 years later, Billy comes to me. Doc, would you meet with me? I need to talk to you. 18 years. I knew nothing that was going on in his life because I wouldn't read it. I didn't care. It's in the paper, I wouldn't even read it. I said, okay, Billy, I'll be happy to meet with you. Now let me show you. He asked for my forgiveness. And I guess as a good Lord would want us to, I granted forgiveness. Looking back in my life, Billy didn't have a job. I got him a job in Dallas, called a couple of my friends, got him a job in Dallas after this time. So made a loan to him, which he paid back. He said, somebody called him. Then we started having a relationship, and we were back with each other. Called me one day, and said, some people are here, and they want to do a barbecue restaurant. He said, Doc, if you can represent me, he said, I'll pay you. Billy, you don't need to pay me anything. I'll be happy to meet with these people. Again, to make a long story short, right now Billy Sims has interest in 52 Billy Sims barbecue restaurants. So that's how we forgave and got back together. Right now, if we would, let me show you. Now, this happened a few years back. Billy was at my house here. He's not here, but in California, our home. They were doing some video stuff for me and some other stuff that was going on. And Billy wanted to, talk on the camera. So let's roll this if you would.
Being in the NFL, you know, they wasn't giving any guaranteed contracts, and there wasn't any free agents, you know, at the time. Just imagine when I can remember when Walter Payton came up to for his contract was up. No other team would touch him because the NFL had a monopoly on the system then, and he couldn't go anywhere. One of the greatest players in the NFL couldn't find another job to go to, so he was sort of stuck there with the Chicago Bears. But once the USFL came around, gave a lot of guys some bargaining powers to leave or stay there or go join the USFL. So it was a pretty neat thing to have around at that time.
And what was the first thing that popped in your head as it pertained to the United States Football League?
Well, first thing was guaranteed contracts. You know, even before Jerry became owner of the USFL, there was other guys coming out of college with big names, Steve Young, Herschel Walker, that was going to that league and get guaranteed money. Of course, again, at that time, the Lions and the NFL, they wasn't guaranteed contracts. So that was definitely enticing to know and hear about.
What was the difference in the amount of money at that time?
Well, actually, we was looking at 3.5, and the main fact, the fact that Jerry once became owner of the Houston Gamblers, it was going to be guaranteed. And my thinking was the Lions wasn't going to do that. So at that time, we was negotiating during that summer of '82, I think. They were still budging not to give a guaranteed contract. Here are the Houston Gamblers, my man who was taking care of me all this time, for agent-client relationship, that I was going to jump ship and go with the Houston Gamblers. Due to the fact of the USFL and all those guys over there, definitely changed the NFL posture on how they was going to treat players later on in history. Without a doubt, if it wasn't for the USFL league, a lot of people been $1 million poorer. And I knew, no question about it, it wasn't for Doc and the USFL, I never would have got that extra $1 million from the Detroit Lions, no question about it. Actually, I met him through one of his partners, Gene Burroughs, introduced me to him. And he said, well, I'm with this guy who used to be a dentist from UT. At first, when he said University of Texas, I almost tell him to get the hell out of here. Don't mess with nobody from Texas. But of course, a lot of people knew him as a dentist. And I said, well, if he can work on teeth, he sure can work on a contract. That's not that hard. In fact, being from Texas, the University of Texas, they really thought that was strange. But I decided, to pursue him and have him represent me. And from day one, he taught me a lot and really was the right guy for me at that time. And even to this day, some 30 years later, he's been on my side, helped me out in some financial situations, some business endeavors that I've been involved in. Thanks to Doc again, we're back in the game. In the beginning, it was 7 guys that went pretty high in the draft. And we made a pact that we'll stay in this together, trusting Jerry to do the right things for us, which he did. And of course, after our separation that time period, and a lot of other guys, at least myself, I noticed things started deteriorating and going the other way. And I'm like, wow, you look back now like, I should have listened to Jerry. Should have listened to the Doc, because he definitely had our best interests at heart. And that's what happened with a lot of young guys that get drafted and have an agent. It's always looking at the front end, not the back end after your playing days are over with. And he was always concerned about that. At 55 years old, I can look back and say, man, he was one of the best person that ever came into my life during my young years at the University of Oklahoma. And from day one, I knew he's a lot different from other guys that I had talked to and agents that wanted to represent me. It was more about being the person and the man than just about trying to go out there and run footballs and make a lot of money. And this is 2010, and still to this day, we're still good friends. We love each other. And of course, like family, you're going to have your fallouts or whatever. But at the end of the day, even though we're not related, but blood is thicker than water, and that's the way I look at Doc. He's been in my corner for quite a long time. I never will forget they had sent a scout to come to Norman, Oklahoma to test me on my speeds, agilities, or whatever. And it was cold as hell out there, and we used to run under the stadium. Of course, now all this changed with indoor tracks, facilities, and all that. And I was in warm-up, and I ran 140. It was like a 4.4, And I said, well, let me run some more to warm up. He said, oh, no, that's it. We're going to draft your ass anyway, so it don't matter. So I'm like, of course, they was 2-14, which they did draft me, and I ended up going to the Detroit Lions. GM, which was Russ Thomas and Jerry, they never did get along from day one. But he had a job to do was to protect me and the other clients that he had, and it was a war, for those first few years there. From day one, they hated it, and they kind of resented the fact that I had Jerry anyway, representing me. So, but I at that time period, I still was, was in Jerry's on Jerry's side. Finally got the deal done, and I knew he had done a good job for me because that was the highest contract that the Lions had ever done for any player, and that all happened because of Jerry Argovitz. My Lloyd's of London insurance, had it not been for Jerry insuring my contract during that time period, when I got hurt, it wasn't for that Lloyd's of London, I've really been up a creek without a paddle. That's when you got to separate business from football, especially in the NFL. And you got to look out for yourself. Of course, again, my rookie year, Jerry had the Lloyd's of London insurance. And again, in my second year, when I got hurt, if it wasn't for him and the Lloyd's of London insurance taking care of me, I'd been booted out the door without any money at that time period. So all the credit, no question about it, goes to Doc in that situation. It was a time period where Doc was getting ready to become owner of the Houston Gamblers. But before that, we were still negotiating with the Lions to, I think, for $3.5 million at that time. And Doc thought he could get $3.5 million from the Gamblers, which he did, guaranteed. And after all the turmoils, situation we had with Detroit, I was ready to just go jump ship and go with the Houston Gamblers, possibly for guaranteed money. So the summer of '82, signed the contract. December of that same year, I signed another contract with the Detroit Lions. And that's when all hell broke loose. Yeah. To me, I was sort of thinking I was creating my own free agency. But I know once the public knew about it, they made a big joke about it. I would go to the games. They said, well, I have a contract, signed mine too. It was a weary, odd situation during that time period when I had to go to court and go through the things I did during that time with USFL and Jerry Argovitz and the Detroit Lions and all that. Because I know in the beginning of the trial, I was basically on Jerry's side. I thought Jerry never was operating in a conflict of interest. He had been my agent. Just because all of a sudden he's going to become owner of the Houston Gambler, to me, didn't make a difference. And I never will forget that after that few days in court, I was headed back home, the Hooks, and they kept me in Detroit. And they had to go over a lot of things that I shouldn't say or should not say, because if I continued on the path that I was going, that they'd have a hard time getting me out of that contract. And but it was difficult. It was a difficult time. I didn't want to be there. I'm sure Doc didn't want to be there, but I had to go ahead and do what I thought was best for me and my family at that time period. If you live long enough, everybody's gonna have some type of regrets, things that they should have done a little better, especially with the contract with the Detroit Lions and my dealing with Jerry. I definitely regret that to this day. It still bothers me a lot, but I'm just so happy that we can communicate, move on, and look at other things in life. But that was one of the worst decisions I made, was not talking to Jerry, calling Jerry at the time when they was going to give me another $1 million, and greed came in. So instead of calling Jerry, I went on side with the Lions, and after that, and then, of course, once my career over was with, other things started happening to me in life, and I know if I'd been under Jerry's management, things would have been a lot different. Nowadays, with TV revenues and all that, they definitely sort of like the NFL, have their own monopoly going there. They got all the power, the money, the lawyers to do whatever they want to do. But for athletes, they're voiceless. A lot of times you take kids come from poor backgrounds or whatever, they, of course, true enough, they can get a chance to work during the season, but not year round. So there are temptations all the time to do things that you probably wouldn't do if you could work and have a job year round. But that's difficult because you're playing, most of your time is spent on football and prepared, for the season. So some kind of way they got to work something out for these kids, because there's always going to be some illegal stuff going on at major universities, or mostly any university. You're going to have that problem. Temptation is there, and it happens all the time, from alumni to whoever trying to help them out along the way. You may have been friends with this guy in high school. Now once they get to college, there's certain things you can do for him and certain things you can't do for him. For even buying him a hamburger anymore, that's off limit. One reason kids take money from boosters, alumni, or agent, because they're in need of it. I know even when I was there 30 years ago, during the season, I didn't have much money. We used to have $15 a month for laundry. So I was happy to see that $15 a month. But then they cut that out. So then, especially if you was a good player, top T player coming in, they want to help you out. A lot of times the agents and the alumni, they know you don't have any money, they know your needs. So they think they're doing the right thing by helping you. It was going on before I got to college. It's been happening after I left college, and till they figure out a way to help the players out a lot better than what they're doing, it's going to continue to happen for guys taking money from agents or alumni or whatever. Because they're going to be there, and they're going to offer it. That's not going to change. Guys that are great players for that university, things going to come to them. It happened to me, it happened to guys before me, it's going to happen to guys after Reggie Bush or whoever. And I guarantee you, if you go look at all the guys that have won any type of awards, you probably can take them all back. So if the university really don't take this problem seriously enough and really look into it and try to help these athletes outside of just a scholarship, it will continue to happen.
That interesting to anybody? Huh? Yeah. Got a few more little stories, then we'll have some questions and answers. Oh, please, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. Up at the NCAA for a second here. Group the NCAA. I'll just read this, you may not be able to see it. National College Players Association, a nonprofit advocating for the rights and safety of collegiate athletes, calling on the NCAA if you look at the in the NCAA, what they say is playing football is an avocation. You're there for college work. You're there to do for an education. They expect. I got this from Dolores Dodds, who's the athletic director for the University of Texas. He said the NCAA wants these players to be treated and expect the same as a player as a student. As an example, you got a guy in the marching band. Every week he gets to be on the football field. He gets to watch the cheerleaders and watch a game. He plays the trombone. He plays in a jazz band. He gets paid. He gives lessons. He gets paid. But this player risks his life, bones, everything. He walks out. He's got nothing. I can't tell you how many kids told me after a game. I said, "How do you feel?" Because I asked them probing questions. Every one of these guys said, "How does it feel after a game?" It's almost the same answer. "Doc, you know what? After a game, everybody goes out and celebrates. I don't have $2 in my pocket to take my girlfriend out for a hamburger and a malt." Over and over. Cheer me up to hear that. So yes, they were forced to take money from outside positions. NCAA put the agents in business. OSU loses money despite $200 million, $10 million in revenues. Here's a coach. One year he went to the University of Colorado, and he was like 2-7. Won 2 games and lost 7. First year coach. Michigan State wanted him. They doubled his salary with a losing record. Think there's any racism still left in sports? You better believe it. About 65 to 70% of the players in the NFL are black. They have probably no more than 20% of the coaches in the NFL are black. I gave Gene Burrow, who became general manager of the Houston Gamblers, who was my partner in the agent business, first black general manager in professional football history. He had 3 black coaches on the Gamblers team. No color. What about this kid here? Chase. He borrowed money from a friend. He paid it back. NCAA slapped him removes him from for a week of not playing. This is college football's most valuable team. Top team, number 1 is Texas A&M, did $148 million 1 year. This was a couple years ago, these numbers. Longhorns did $133 million. That's just from ticket sales and revenue. Doesn't include what the alumni gives them extra. On this 1 year, the top 25 teams rose to over $2.5 billion. You would think there'd be a little something they would do for these kids. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's going to change them is people like us who really feel this is something wrong. And eventually it's going to change. It's time. It's definitely time. A couple of quick stories. When we were folding the USFL, Donald Trump and I were partners. The league consolidated, so Trump calls me, and I'm with the Gamblers, he's with the Generals. We probably had the best team in football history that never played a game. Jim Kelly was a quarterback. Herschel Walker was what we call our super back. Doug Flutie was a backup. And we had 4 of the fastest players that's ever on one team. And I'd bet and give you odds on it. And Herschel Walker was a world-class sprinter, right? He was the fourth slowest. 3 guys faster than Herschel. But when we were closing down the shop, not going to play, Donald calls me in. He said, I want you to take a look at these contracts. He said, my lawyers tell me these personal services contract that we signed with Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie, he said, I'm locked in. He said, I can't get out of them. He said, hell, you forgot more than these lawyers know, so I want you to look at them and see if you can get me out of these contracts. And we're closing, the league's over, we're finished. So now the way it works, the NFL wouldn't sign these players until they got a release from the USFL. So I'll read the 2 contracts. I'll go back to Donald the next day. And I said, yeah, I think I can get you out of it, these 2 contracts. What are you going to do? I'll take care of it, don't worry about it. I said, but here's what you got to do. Donald surrounded himself with yes people. There wasn't anybody really, if you did, he's always when you're talking, you're shaking your head up like this. You didn't agree with him. He makes his own decisions pretty much. I think I was the only one that wasn't a yes person. So I said, here's what you have to do. These agents who represent Herschel and who's representing Doug, they're going to be calling you because they're going to want to talk to you. You tell them, do not call you. You are not involved. Talk to Jerry Argovitz. He is telling everything. He's the general manager of this team, and he's the president. You deal with him. So I called, the Doug Flutie's agent, Bob Wolf, calls me. He says, we need to get this personal services contract taken care of from Doug and get a release from it. And I had found an article where Doug Flutie said something about if he doesn't get paid more than he's making or something that he wasn't going to play football anymore. There was a little clip in his contract that Trump's lawyer drew up. I never saw it before. If you do anything, claim anything that you're not going to play football, then it voids the personal services contract. Well, that was interesting. I called Bob Wolf. I said, Bob, we're not reducing anything. I said, because it says here his contract is void anyway. What are you talking about? It's read the contract. It was like a splinter on a door, just enough to hang a hat on. So we're not signing release. I said, so if you want to get, I said, as far as I'm concerned, that contract's voided. I called, and then Herschel Walker's agent. The guy says, I got to have this release signed because this was on a Thursday afternoon. He says, Friday at midnight, he said, their offer goes away, Dallas Cowboys and Herschel Walker. He said, I need this release signed. I said, yeah. And I said, you expect, I said, and you want Donald to pay you the personal services contract. He had something like $6 million left on Flutie's and maybe $5 or $6 million left on Herschel, personal services. So he says, yeah, I said, we expect that's earned, and we want to release. I said, well, let me tell you something. I said, Donald is going to honor the contract, the personal services contract. And I said, you know those big green hats they wear in front of Trump Tower? He said, what do you mean? He said, Donald and I discussed this. What he told me was he wanted to have Herschel put in a uniform and have a green hat on and sign autographs for the people coming in Trump Tower. I said, so we're honoring the contract. So if you want to go play for the Cowboys, you can't do that. He's going to be here. Well, they got rid of that contract, Trump. So he got rid of the contract. So Donald said, I spent enough money, lost enough money in this league, get me out of them. I did. Another quick story. Jim Kelly. Everybody know about Jim Kelly? What a fearless guy. Just called me a couple of days ago. Knew I was going to be here lecturing. Said, please be sure and say nice things about me. Said, I used to call him TF. TF was the franchise. I said, Jim, I never say anything but good things about you, except one. After we drafted Jim, we put in the run and shoot offense. No one ever heard of the run and shoot offense before. They said it wouldn't work in professional football. It's like skill yard football. It's not going to work. Well, as I studied it, as I see it, if you make the right personnel, then it will work, and other teams aren't going to be able to defend it. So anyway, we don't play for another year. I'm building the team now. So we've got our guys out working out. I had Mouse Davis and Jack Party, our coaches, and we're going through workouts. So Mouse comes in to me one day and said, Doc, I'm having trouble with the big fella. That's what he called Kelly, the big fella. He wants to drop back 6 yards and throw the ball 50 yards down the field. He doesn't like running the football. He doesn't like rolling out. He says, it's just not working. He said, he's not buying into the program. Okay, Mouse, thanks for telling me. I'll take care of it. What are you going to do? I'll take care of it. Todd Dillon was a quarterback that played at Long Beach State, who won some honors. Todd was maybe 6'1", 6'1.5", not very big, but a hell of a player. He passed on a rollout. That's what he did, a rollout offense. And we had his draft rights. I brought Todd in. I think I gave him a $30,000 signing bonus and like maybe $30,000, 40, and 50, thousand to sign. I called Mouse in. I said, Mouse, I just signed Todd Dillon. And when he comes here, if he shows up better than Jim in the run and shoot offense, put Jim aside and give Todd the reps. He said, are you kidding? I said, I'm serious. Do that. Sure enough, after the second week, Todd Dillon was doing much better than Jim Kelly was. So Mouse puts him in. And for a week or 2 weeks, Todd Dillon's running the first string, and Jim's sitting there on his butt, watching everything going on, mad as hell. So I call him in one day. I said, Jim, you and I need to have lunch together. I said, but first come to my office, I want to talk to you. So he sits down, and we're talking. I said, Jim, you and I are going to be the laughing stock of professional football. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, number one, me being the stupid schmuck who who paid you $3.5 million, and you being another schmuck for sitting your butt on the bench. Because we are not changing this offense. This is the offense we're running. And that guy, Todd, is doing better than you. And if you don't win the job, you're not going to be starting. He hits the desk down with his fist. It's my job. I said, if your job, you go prove it. He goes back the next day like it is a different person. A week later, Mouse Davis comes in. She said, Doc, what did you say to the big fella? Mouse, very simple. Psychology 101. He's a competitor. So we've had some great times. I really appreciate y'all coming out. Thank you very much. One second. I got to do something else. I got to do one more thing. This is what I close everything with. All my classes, the JASI classes, and any talks I give, I close with this. In the JASI course, the kids in our JASI course all have memorized this. Every night they read it. It's called Don't Cheat the Man in the Mirror. When you get all you want and you struggle for wealth, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your mother, your father, or coach whose judgment upon you must pass, but the man whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's a fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you right up to the end. And you've passed your most difficult and dangerous test. The man in the glass is your friend. You may be like Jack Horner and Chisel Plum and think you're a wonderful guy, but the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and take pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We have a couple of minutes for a few questions. If anyone has questions for Dr. Argovitz. Yes.
Good question. We lasted 3 years. At the end of the third year, we had at least 3 teams. For sure, the Gamblers, the Philadelphia team, for sure, would compete with the middle of the NFL, compete competitively. We would have stayed, my 5-year plan that I put together for the USFL, we had to be there for 5 years. I knew that 5 years, the NFL Players Association, the NFL would strike, and there'd be a strike, we'd be the only game in town. We had 5 years, we could have competed what I called, at that time was the Galaxy Bowl. USFL playing the NFL 2 out of 3 games. We would have stayed 2 more years. Donald Trump wanted to go to the fall. His whole reason to go to the fall was to create a lawsuit, antitrust violation. And I gave 5 days, think of this, for 5 days they deposed me. 5 days, 9 o'clock in the morning, till after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Because I knew all the information from all the teams that I dealt with, and all the general managers and all the owners, kept all my notes and everything. The lawyers loved it. Well, they used and they were afraid for me to come in the courtroom because the NFL would challenge me and put me on the stand. This is like what stupid lawyers we had. So you crazy? Said they wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. Worst thing having them is put me on the stand. We'd really kicked their butt.
Time for another question?
Yes, sir. It's interesting, we talked about that last night at dinner. Andy asked a question to my friends, and how do you have a man that became a woman and is competing with women? The genetic makeup is different between the two. I don't care what you do. You still from a man's standpoint, trying to compete with a female in sports, it's pretty far-fetched. I think it's very unfair, personally, that kind of competition. That's my personal opinion.
One more round of applause for Dr. Argovitz. I appreciate everybody being with us tonight. We have a